Next on the Broadway show, Here Comes Trouble, we're talking to one of the stars of Trouble in Mind, Michael Zegen, about his Broadway return and season 4 of the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Plus, Tony winner Celia Keenan-Bolger is here. We're taking a walk through her incredible Broadway resume. And Broadway newcomer Morgan Dudley joins us to talk about getting her big break in Jagged Little Pill. I'm Tamsen Fadal, and this is the Broadway Show. Each and every week, we are pumped up because Broadway is back, and I'm so glad you could be here for the Broadway show. I'm Tamsen Fadal.
No more opening act gigs. What? I will only do gigs where I can say what I want. That's what Lenny would do. That's different. He's Lenny Bruce. Well, then make me Lenny Bruce. Make me a headliner.
Season 4 of the marvelous Mrs. Maisel returns to Amazon Prime in February. But right now, one of the original stars is back on Broadway. Let's send it out to Paul Wontorek.
Before the new season of the marvelous Mrs. Maisel arrives on Amazon Prime, Michael Zegen is back on stage in Alice Childress's acclaimed play, Trouble in Mind. We met up at the DEH Blue Room here at the brand new Civilian Hotel to talk about his return to the stage. Welcome back to Broadway.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
You're in the midst of a run. You got great reviews.
Yeah.
The play's a big hit.
Audiences have been loving it. The cast, we love it. We love this play, and we've loved it since we started rehearsing for it. It's great to get the play out there and Alice Childress, her name out there, because personally I'd never heard of her before. I'd never heard of the play.
Right.
But it's something special.
Audiences are really amazed at how modern a lot of it feels. What was it like for you as a reader?
You know, when I got the script, again, I had never heard of this play before, and I was emailed the script from my agents, and I read, the first few scenes and saw where my character comes in, and immediately I knew this is a guy I can play. It takes place in the 50s, which is kind of my wheelhouse. It's funny. It's a funny play.
Yeah.
And especially for being written in 1955, and the fact that it's still funny and still gets the laughs. I mean, every night we get, big laughs from the audience. It's heavy. It's a heavy play, don't get me wrong, but it is funny. I honestly couldn't believe that it was written in the 50s because it's so modern.
Right.
It is. It's so modern. The jokes still hit. There's a character named Bill in the play. He's a white actor, and he laments the fact that he can't call women gal anymore. Just little things like that, which we're still talking about today. It's ironic. It's funny. I mean, I read this and thought, why haven't I heard of this play before?
So let's talk about Al Manners, that's his name.
Sure.
He is the director.
Yeah.
This is about rehearsals for a play, a bad play.
Yeah, but he thinks it's something grand. He thinks that this is, game-changing.
Yes.
And it is in a way.
Yeah, sure.
Because he is giving these black actors really, decent parts. Unfortunately, they're still relegated to stereotypes.
Right.
But he just sees the fact that he's given them this opportunity,
Right.
As something special, but they don't see it that way.
Do you find him difficult to play?
It is a difficult part to play. It is because, sometimes I could feel the audience, like I could feel their hatred towards him.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's hatred, but I could feel their animosity towards him. LaShawns gets up there and everybody's clapping and applauding and they love her, and rightly so, she's amazing. And then I come out and people are like, wait a minute, I don't like this guy. So it's, it is hard in that respect, but also fun. I guess he's not the villain, but he is the antagonist of the play, and playing the antagonist can be fun. And he does, to his credit, he does make some interesting points, especially in his monologue towards the end. You listen to it and you're like, okay, I get what he's saying, and then I don't want to give anything away, but then he also makes some points that make you think like, oh no, he's a jerk.
It seems a shame that you're alone.
There was a perfectly good girl I set him up with last week.
Wow, you were quick.
Excuse me, Ma, for not wanting to go out with a pregnant divorced woman.
She's not divorced. Her husband died.
So we have to talk about the marvelous Mrs. Maisel. I love this show so much. It's filled with theater people. And it feels like such a theater-friendly set. And there's a lot of theater references with it. It feels very Broadway-friendly.
Yeah, it is theater. It is theater. I mean, this is a very theatrical show.
Yeah.
We are all theater people, and when you do a scene, it's a lot of the time there's no cuts. It's just one continuous scene, and that's theater, you know?
Sure.
Of course, if you screw up, you can go back to the top, unlike theater,
right.
where you just have to keep plowing through it somehow, which is honestly, like my worst nightmare. But yeah, no, I mean, it is theater, and again, there's that trust. I mean, I trust everybody on that show. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing.
You play Joel. What do you love about his journey? Because I guess it would be really easy for him to just be sort of a bad guy from the beginning, but we're sort of stuck with Joel, and so we get to see Joel's life move on.
I love seeing how he's evolved.
Yeah.
And yeah, at the beginning, in the first episode, he leaves her. It's hard to win back an audience after you do something like that. But somehow I've been able to do that in some cases, not all. But yeah, it's really he's a multifaceted character. He's got a lot of depth to him, and I think out of everybody on the show, he's probably the most grounded and the most human. Not taking anything away from anybody else, but you know, it is. I mean, let's face it, MAISEL is a heightened reality.
Absolutely.
And I do think he's probably the most kind of normal-ish.
Jagged Little Pill was the most nominated show of this past season's Tony Awards, featuring incredible performances and songs of Alanis Morissette. It's a special show that meant a lot of things to a lot of people, and even though its run was just cut short by COVID, the musical has helped launch careers, and that's why Morgan Dudley is this week's fresh face.
Hi, my name is Morgan Dudley, and I play Frankie Healy in Jagged Little Pill on Broadway. I am from a place called Hiram, Georgia, and it's a pretty small town. It's rural. Moving to somewhere like New York has been really interesting because there's so many people that you can't really engage with strangers like it is in the South, where you kind of just say hey to everybody in the town. The thing that wows me about being here is, one, all of the visual stimulation. There's so much happening in the city. It's alive and on all the time, but also how you can really be whoever you want to be here. It's not just a saying or a stereotype, like that's really how it is here. My first time that I can remember being on stage was when I was in 2nd grade, and we had a chorus concert, and I got to sing about how to build a paper airplane, and I was like so confident. I was like, ooh, like I like it here. I like people watching me. The moment that I decided I wanted to do theater professionally was my 11th grade year, when I did The Wiz and I got to play Glinda. It was my favorite thing ever. And it was also like the moment that I realized I can make this a career. I found out that I got this part while I was at work, and I worked at Barnes & Noble previously. I had actually told my manager about the audition, just because I wanted him to know, just in case like I did have to drop work because I loved my job. I didn't want them to think that I was just blowing them off. He told everyone in the store, so they all knew about the audition before I'd even gotten a call back. So I was like, oh my gosh, like if I don't get this is gonna be so embarrassing, because everyone was constantly asking. And I was in the freezer pulling cheesecakes because I worked in the cafe, and I get a call from my manager. She goes, "You're going on Broadway." I started screaming. My coworkers heard me from the front, and they turned around and like ran back there. And I was like, y'all, I got it. And that was my last day. The way it feels making my Broadway debut in Jagged Little Pill is surreal. It feels like a big responsibility to bring it to life and to really make sure that all of the messages that we're trying to get out. There's so many important things that the show has to say. It's such an honor, and it's so crazy that I get to be a part of it. Sometimes it just hits me out of nowhere, but it's amazing. Opening night was absolutely amazing. The energy was so good from the audience and from us, just because like we were so excited to be back. And so like I just felt it all. And I remember like I wasn't emotional yet because it was still surreal. But about a week later, whenever we'd first finished our 8-show week, I remember just crying on stage because I was like, this is my dream.
And there's still a whole lot more to talk about on this edition of the Broadway Show. Coming up, Scout's honor, To Kill a Mockingbird is back on Broadway. We're taking a walk with the Tony-winning star Celia Keenan-Bolger. All rise. Aaron Sorkin's To Kill a Mockingbird is back on Broadway and bringing audiences to their feet 8 times a week. And Celia Keenan-Bolger has returned to her role as Scout Finch. Paul Wontorek caught up with Celia to take a walk through her Tony Award-winning career.
That's right, Tamsen. Celia Keenan-Bolger did win a 2019 Tony Award for her portrayal of Scout Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, but she actually won the hearts of theater fans in many other performances over the years. Am I right or am I right?
Are you right? You're right.
You're right. I'm right. So you got your walking shoes on. I see
You got you.
some fancy boots.
Is this what we call walking shoes?
Let's go walk through your resume,
Okay,
shall
great.
we? Okay, so here we are at Circle in the Square Theater. Not the Gershwin, which is right next door. You were not in Wicked.
I wasn't, but do you know that when you were in the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee, you got all of the spillover of the lottery losers from Wicked, which I think is how we maintained a robust initial audience where people were like, the 25th what? I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
But all the Wicked lottery people, of which there were hundreds, were like, well, that's a show. Let's go see that. And then people were like, wait, that show's kind of good.
And you played Olive.
Yes.
You were, how old was Olive?
She was like 11 or 12.
She was a little girl.
That's right.
She had
She had absent parents.
Her parents really put a lot of pressure on her.
Yep, and then didn't show up.
She sang a really beautiful song.
Yes.
Yes.
That Bill Finn wrote when we were performing in a lunchroom at Barrington Stage Company.
Right, because it started up in the Berkshires,
Yep.
a little show.
Yes.
Did not necessarily have Broadway on, on the plan.
No.
But it brought you to Broadway. Your Broadway debut happened
Yes.
here.
That's right.
So what was that girl like, Celia Keenan-Bolger, who made her Broadway debut in this theater, who walked in these doors?
I mean, I think she was really, she couldn't quite believe her life. It was actually the perfect scrappy beginnings. It felt like the show. It felt like this little underdog, and the people, I mean, to this day, people that saw that show are like, I loved that show.
It's the Brooks Atkinson Theater. You were in another fantastic show in this theater, another show that I know means a lot to you.
Yes.
What was that show?
Peter and the Starcatcher, or as we called it, Starcatcher.
You were the only gal on that stage.
That's right. I learned so much about male dynamics on that job. It was the first time I ever had my own dressing room, so that was a big deal. And I had this big couch, and I feel like the guys would just come in and they would start talking, and then they would lie down and they would tell me their problems, and it was the best. I loved that so much. And I will say, I think Peter and the Starcatcher is the show more than any other thing that I've done. When I'm signing at the stage door, or when we used to be able to do that, where they're my favorite show I've ever seen is Peter and the Starcatcher.
Wow. This is the booth theater. This is a jewel box theater.
That's right.
Which means what? Intimate and lovely.
And the best. I think this is my favorite theater that I've ever performed in, my favorite Broadway theater, because you feel like you're on Broadway, but you're I can see the eyeballs of the people in that mezzanine.
Yeah, and you were in The Glass Menagerie, such a beautiful production. There have been many Glass Menageries on Broadway.
Sure.
It's kind of a running joke. There've been many, but you were in this beautiful, beautiful production. Talk about it.
That was one of those where I got, my agent sent me, they were like, we have an appointment for you for The Glass Menagerie, and I was like, that old dusty play? I don't need to see that or be in that. And then I was like, but I should read it. And I finished it, and I remember saying to my husband, John, I was like, John, The Glass Menagerie is a very beautiful play. And then I went and auditioned for it, did the callback with Brian J. Smith, who had already been cast as the gentleman caller. Okay. I had 6 pages of that gentleman caller.
You were the last one in the family.
Yes.
You were the last one in.
That's right. Just knocking on the door. And I had the script, I had prepared my 6 pages, and we ended up doing the entire scene. And this is a proud moment. I did make John, Tiffany, and Jim Carnahan cry, where I was like, well, if I don't get the job, at least I made them feel sad.
One show more.
Look at you.
Broadhurst.
That's right.
You were in Les Miserables, famously playing, according to your IMDb, whore.
Correct.
And Eponine.
That's right. You, as Eponine, you get to play 5 parts before you change into your Eponine costume.
The iconic Eponine costume with the trench.
That's
and
right. And a sensible belt.
Yeah, and you get to sing this gorgeous got to sing this gorgeous song on my own.
That's right.
Another tear. You make people cry. This is sort of like one of your things.
That show was so, I mean, that was one of those moments where I felt like, because I had been so obsessed, I'm of a generation where like Les Mis and Phantom were like the shows.
Yeah.
I remember just being like, if the 10-year-old version of myself knew that I was gonna be Eponine in Les Miserables, I would have lied down dead. And of course, like there were all these little ones in that show, like the little Cosettes, and they didn't know me, they didn't know anything about me, but they were like, we love you because we love Eponine. And I was like, shoot, there's just something about Eponine.
Okay, Celia, we are on 42nd Street. This is the
heart
heart
of
of Old Times Square, right?
That's
Active,
right.
Very active block.
That's right.
What did you do with the American Airlines?
I did the Cherry Orchard.
The Cherry Orchard, that's Chekhov,
play,
right?
Adapted
That's a fancy show.
It felt like that too. I was like, if I could be in a Chekhov play, that seems like a pretty exciting thing. I had also just had a baby. This was the first Broadway show I did back post like child.
Yeah.
I think after having my son, I was like, I would like an experience that both like sort of takes me out of my comfort zone and where I am reflected for the age that I actually am.
You played a lot of kids.
Yeah. But not on this show. No kids in the Cherry Orchard.
So here we are finally. This is your current Broadway home, the Schubert Theater with the best front of house.
Come on.
Post-pandemic, you're back.
Yeah.
How are you feeling up there?
Oh my gosh. I mean, that first day back in the Schubert Theater, like I left in November, so a lot of time had gone by. And being back, like seeing all of those guys, I was just like, oh my gosh. And also that theater, I mean, that is like the gold standard of Broadway theaters. And looking out, I was just like flooded with the idea of being in a room with like 1,400 strangers. So that was unbelievably, and also returning to something that I had known so well and then having sort of processed it in this new way, it felt like a real homecoming.
How does it feel to like think back on this career and to walk these streets again? And
you know, I was thinking about this when you reached out to do this, and I was like, you know, when you're in college, you have a dream to just make it to Broadway. Like, if I could just get in a Broadway show, that would be it. And then to like go to all of these theaters is incredibly moving to me.
Many more to come.
I hope, right?
I can't wait.
Yeah, same.
Phantom of the Opera is the longest-running Broadway musical in history. The iconic chandelier rose and fell once again in October at New York City's Majestic Theater. Charlie Cooper talked to one of the stars of Phantom, John Riddle.
I know that Phantom was the first show that you saw at 5 years old.
You've done your research.
I know. 5-year-old you, could he have ever imagined that you would be in the show as Raoul?
No, I just got chills actually, because here we are standing in front of the Majestic. Like, this used to be sort of a fake thing in my mind. It like didn't actually exist, and that was sort of the feeling I had. It was my first audition when I moved to New York. I auditioned for Raoul, and I think I auditioned like every year since then, actually, since I've been in New York for 9 years. And so when I got that call, it was so. They said, "Hey, do you want to be in Phantom of the Opera?" And I said, I didn't even hesitate. Yes, of course. So it's pretty thrilling. And the first show my first night on the Majestic, I definitely had a moment of, I'm in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway, like how special.
What was that like to get that call to know that you guys were coming back?
It was sort of like a sigh of relief in a way, because we really didn't know what it's like been in a waiting room for a year and a half. And so I just find a lot of joy that for us as a whole, as a community, that we're gonna come back and do it again. I think one of the most important things that we learned this year is how important what we do in here is. And you know, bless everything that has happened on Zoom. There's been some incredible things that we've pulled off online, but it's not the same thing as sitting in these theaters and doing the thing. That was my biggest, it was like, let's go back and do this and do it better.
Yeah, it's almost like you have this new appreciation, I imagine.
Yes, yeah, and I think we all do, or I hope we do. Like a lot of things we maybe took for granted. We're just hungry for the live experience again.
Who is that guy?
I don't know. He apparently has been to Sephora and picked up some sort of I don't know what number foundation that is, but you look pretty good. It's pretty thrilling. Like this guy here, this was like almost 2 years ago, so it's kind of a different person. Looking at this photo is kind of like staring into the past, because it literally is. But this moment, I can't wait to do this again. I can't wait to, I have been very lucky. Megan Pacherno, who plays Christine. We've been singing a lot together actually this year, so that's been kind of cool. We've like kept the little fire alive. But it does make me really excited I can't wait to see that lineup of people.
And that's going to do it for us. Until next time, I'm Tamsen Fadal, and this is The Broadway Show.